Good evening. I'd like to call to order the July 9th, 2013 regular school board meeting for Santa Barbara Unified School District. And we will begin our meeting with the flag salute.
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Spanish translation.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Lourdes Fleischer y estoy aquí para ayudarle a traducir la junta del día de hoy. Si usted necesita ayuda, estoy aquí atrás. Gracias.
We also have headsets for the hearing impaired if anybody is in need of those. We will begin our general meeting with introductions, proclamations, presentations, and recognitions. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, President Limon. I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but I don't believe I am. We have in the audience tonight two of our assistant principal candidates. Mary Ziegler, who will be an assistant principal at Dos Pueblos High School. Mary, please stand so the board can get to know you. Thank you for being here this evening. Welcome to our district. And Brian Jaramillo, who will be the assistant principal at La Cuesta Alta Vista. Welcome.
Welcome.
And on to my report.
Do they get to say something?
Would you like them to say something?
If they'd like to say something, they're welcome to say something.
All
at
right,
the podium.
come on forward.
Thank you. Good evening. President Limon, Dr. Cash, members of the board, I just wanted to take this opportunity to just say thank you so much. Grateful for the opportunity to serve the students and the families of the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And I especially want to express my gratitude to Dr. Christensen for all of her guidance and support. I really look forward to a very successful partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now Brian is going to be pressured to come forward.
It'll be the first of several presentations.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the board members, Dr. Cash, for this opportunity. I've hopefully worked hard and have been waiting for this opportunity, and appreciate that you're willing to take me into Santa Barbara. I do come from Santa Barbara, came here for college to Westmont College many years ago, and so it's kind of a homecoming for me to come back here. I've always been involved in service and can remember at Westmont, I can't remember the year, but when there were floods in Santa Barbara, going downtown to Santa Barbara and helping out the community to get out of the mud and things like that. And so I've always been very lucky to just serve the people of Santa Barbara in any way that I can, and I look forward to working with Ms. Wagenuck at La Cuesta and Alta Vista schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That was a very rigorous process. So we also have on the agenda tonight new assistant principal at Goleta Valley Junior High School, Fred Razzo. So, and with that, on to the superintendent's report. As you all know, in the summer, there's lots and lots of facilities work going on at several of our campuses. And I just want to give you just a brief glimpse at them and let you also know that there will be photos and an update on our district's webpage as well. San Marcos High School has a new ADA ramp behind the cafeteria, plus some drainage improvements, and work on the student parking lot off Turnpike has just started. Santa Barbara Junior High School's pavement replacement is underway, and that is quite a project. And if you'll recall, we're in a two-phase, it's still remaining 2 phases, and we're in phase 1 of that project. It will result in improved playgrounds, basketball and volleyball courts. And J.R. Richards Gym at Santa Barbara High School is getting a new ceiling, new floor, basketball backstops, PA system, paint, and energy-efficient LED lights. And that project is significantly along the way. Yeah. And there will be more information about that throughout the summer, and as I said, on our website. And speaking of our website, within the very near future, you will note that our website has changed. We're very close to launching our new website, which we believe will be highly engaging, very interactive with our community. I want to publicly acknowledge the work of Todd Rickman and Linda Steele for making that happen. We're excited about the way it looks and how our community is going to interact with the website and the information. We, in speaking with a communications consultant, he indicated that our website is filled with lots of information, and actually so did Dr. Castrita comment on that yesterday. But there has been some issues arising about being able to find the information. So we're hopeful that the new website will be efficient and effective in ensuring that our community gets all the information about our district. So look for that within the next 2 weeks. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board comments or correspondence? All right, hearing none, we'll move to announcements of closed session action. And we actually have no reportable action to announce. And then we will proceed to our public comment. Ms.
We
Parker.
do have one speaker, Mr. Kenneth Locke.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I spoke before the City Council, and I kind of brought up once again my tennis project and how it, holistic health, mind, body, and all that. And I think I mentioned to you last time I spoke here is that nature of like an inferior relationship. And it turns out that the one-arm relationship that we have right now with tennis competition, it's the inferior one. It's the lower one. And it turns out that education teachers of tennis say they really haven't really qualified to be a teacher, it turns out, because we really don't understand where the teachings come from. And the idea is that, I'm sorry to say that all the teachers have been kind of guilty of dumbing down. So the whole concept of dumbing down. And I'm sorry to say that, not sorry to say, I hope the idea that now we can actually come out of that now. So the idea of coming out of the dumbing out process and realize it, recognize it, and then put it beneath us type of situation. And I'm hopeful that what I'm talking about is this age that we're coming to, and I'm feeling I've been raised up as a teacher and with a responsibility to kind of my fellow human beings. And that's kind of like what I'm doing up here. And the idea is that with this education now, the old one, it needs to be recognized for what it is. And that's what I'm kind of doing through the means of tennis and then also through the arts, but that's a little easier through tennis. And then the idea of the connection it has with health, which is important for everybody and the community as a whole. And the idea that what a school is actually is the purpose, the meaning of what an education is, so that we can actually raise people up so they're actually worthy participants of a good and integrated community type of situation, kind of as it is in heaven type of situation. But I thought I'd take the time to come by and say hi and then share this information with you. Thank you.
And I believe this concludes public comment. We will move to acceptance of donations.
I move to accept donations.
Thank you, Dr. Bass. Thank you, Mrs. Eidelson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with gratitude. And we are going to proceed to our consent agenda. Board members, are there any items on the consent that you would like to pull? Dr. Bass?
Item E6, the minutes for May 14th, 2013.
All right. Any other items anybody would like to pull?
Okay, I'd like to pull item, I think it's,
E6.
is it F4? F4, I think? Is
Human
it?
resources.
What's that?
Human resources.
No, the minutes.
The minutes are also E6, and just, if you know the date, the
Okay, yeah, E6,
E6.
April 23rd.
All right, so I have April 23rd and May 14th minutes. I will need to abstain from the Human Resources Personnel Action Item List, and I think that that's it. And if they're just modifications, we can probably take them right after.
Okay.
All right, so for the remainder of the consent agenda items, do we?
I move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, but I'll also make a comment.
Absolutely.
Just want to mention to the public that I'm very, very happy to see that you negotiated an agreement with the city for the renewal of for 3 years of the crossing guards. So our schools will have crossing guards when school starts, which is, I thank you very much.
Thank you to the city and Dr. Cash and the team who negotiated that. It's the same approval that we've had for the last 3 years. It's the same agreement that we've had for the last 3 years. So, thank you. All right. So with no additional comments, all those in favor of approving the remainder of the consent agenda, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And we will take on we can take on the personnel action list. I just need to abstain
Move to
from that.
approve.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Noted here with me. And motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. And now we will move to approval of minutes for April 23rd, and I'll start there, April 23rd.
It was on April 23rd, item 4. It showed, it just needed a correction. It showed 0 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
It's Novus.
All right, it's
Okay.
Novus.
Yeah, I can fix it.
All right,
Okay.
I got it.
thank you. All right, so that's noted. And then for May 14th,
On item E5, President Limon abstained, and the vote shows 4-1, and it should have been 4-0, and abstention is not a vote. So it should be always 4-0, not 4-1.
Oh, okay, that's something else on notice, because on my input, it says abstain.
Yeah.
But I'll correct that.
Yeah, it should, if you look at Robert's rules, an abstention is like not voting. So the total should be 4-0, not 4-1, because otherwise it would be noted as a 4, meaning 4 yes and 1 nay.
all right, any additional?
I move to approve the revised minutes.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The revised minute passes 5-0. So this takes us to our action agenda items. And we have approval of memorandum between the City of Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara Unified School District for facilities use of the West Side Community Center. Neighborhood
Yeah,
Center.
I'd like to
neighborhood.
take both 1 and 2 and talk about them at the same time.
All right.
And we did discover today that name change has occurred, and it's the West Side Neighborhood Center. I'm really excited to talk about 2 of these MOUs, and we hope that we'll have another MOU with another great community service agency, which I won't discuss publicly until we do have that MOU, to provide services for students, and I'm going to use the language that Fran Wagonek's using, that we hope can reset their academic path and make strides toward ensuring their own personal freedom and liberty. And we're excited to bring forward these 2 MOUs for action this evening. As the board is aware and the community is aware, with the closure of El Puente, our decision has been to investigate what would be the best possible action that we could take for the Santa Barbara Unified School District students. And we did a thorough and, I would say, exhaustive investigation as to what our potential options were and how best to meet the needs of not only the students who were district students in El Puente, but other students who would benefit from alternative education setting. And our decision was we felt within the La Cuesta Alta Vista alternative education program, we can provide the programs necessary to meet the needs of all of the students in our district, including those students who may be expelled from the district. So these 2 MOUs represent I think, a new partnership with the City of Santa Barbara and the CAC, as those two agencies, the City of Santa Barbara and the CAC, are going to help us realize our dream of improving the lives of children in our community. And it's very exciting to be partnering with them. We partner with them in a whole host of areas, but in this new area as well. Both the City of Santa Barbara and the Community Action Commission will be providing classroom space for us in order to meet the needs of students on the west side of Santa Barbara, downtown Santa Barbara, and then also in Goleta at the CAC Center on Hollister Avenue. They're proposed to be part of what we believe will be a rich continuum of services that we as a district will be offering all of our students in alternative education. And within La Cuesta and Alta Vista, we will be bringing forward a lot more information. We'd hoped we'd have all of the MOUs available tonight so we could have a full report, but really wanted to wait to get that before we made the full public disclosure at the next meeting. But I thought it's a good night to share some preliminary information about our thinking and the processes that we've engaged in, and I think it's important to share that at this point. I want to start by saying that under Fran Wagenknecht's leadership, really it's clear that every single decision we're going to be making will be based on what that individual student needs. And to that end, we're going to be meeting with every single student and their parents and providing them, learning about their students' needs, and then providing them with a continuum of options, essentially, that we believe would help meet those students' needs. And the decision really has been made that students can be placed for a short period of time, or they can make a decision that this is where they want to go and complete their high school career in one of our alternative education settings. One of the outstanding and wonderful things that occurred as a result of the leadership of Kathy Abney and also Fran Wagenknecht this past year is that we have 2 alternative ed high schools that are WASC accredited. And they can provide a diploma that right away enables the student to be eligible to enter college, a 4-year college. And that is significant, and I think a significant difference, and importantly, for students and parents. Students, we also believe, in Fran's work, that because of the setting that we're going to create, that students can transition from one setting to another if they so desire. A student can make the decision that CAC classroom is a great place for them, but after a period of time, they may decide, I'm really interested in the middle college program at Santa Barbara City College. And so once they're within the La Cuesta and Alta Vista alternative education programs, moving from one area to another will be relatively easy for those students because they'll be students at that high school. They won't have to go through any other process in order to do that. And we believe that that's really going to be great for kids and families. All the students, except those that the board expels, will go through a process called the Educational Transition Team. And that Educational Transition Team will be made up of experts in our district, including administrators from La Cuesta, Alta Vista, district administrators, psychologists, special education staff. They'll meet once a month, and they will talk about the students and parents that are interested in attending our alternative education programs, and then make decisions with those students and parents about the best place for those students to go. A decision has been made to use a hybrid instructional model, which includes online learning for students, FaceTime instruction for students with teachers in the classroom, and also includes an independent study model, which we have very successfully engaged students in our Alta Vista High School, which was, as you know, reading the WASC report, was recognized by the WASC visiting team as very effective. One of the really important parts of this, what I think is going to be a revolution in alternative education in Santa Barbara, is the leadership at La Cuesta Alta Vista's recognition that one of the most significant elements lacking was a connection to careers. And so we are going to, as with our partnership with the City of Santa Barbara and the West Side Neighborhood Center, are going to be moving toward the creation of a culinary arts pathway or academy in that where students will be connected to Santa Barbara City College pathway, their hotel and restaurant management program, which we're very, very excited about. We think that's going to be an incredible opportunity for kids. In fact, at the West Side Neighborhood Center, there's gardens already in place, and we can move literally from the dirt to the white tablecloth setting at Santa Barbara City College in the gourmet dining room. So I think exciting, great potential for kids and really give kids a connection, and very much in line with our implementation of the Common Core. As I stated at the beginning, there'll be more information that we'll be able to share, staffing, all of that stuff, once we have we hope the last MOU signed with one of our community service agencies, and we believe we'll have secured that and be able to make a more complete presentation at the next board meeting. But I would ask that the board approve these MOUs so that we can move forward in providing these services for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board comments or questions? Ms. Parker?
Well, I will have questions, and I'm looking forward to the more extensive presentation about it. I realize that this is just on the agenda as MOUs, and that we probably shouldn't go into a great deal of background about the actual program. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve items G1 and G2, the memorandum between the City of Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara Unified School District for use of the West Hyde Neighborhood Center, and the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County and the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. Any additional discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I think we're all excited to hear more about a complete presentation, but this is definitely sounds like a great partnership between the city, community agencies, and the school district. And in the end, what's right for our students, it's right for us. So thank you. We will move on to action agenda item 3, G3, recommendation for approval of resolution 2013/2014-03, a resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District approving the forms of the preliminary official statement and bond purchase contract to be prepared in connection with the issuance of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, Santa Barbara County, California. I'll stop there. It goes on. It's a long agenda item.
It is a long agenda.
Mr. Tay.
Thank you. So we're getting closer to selling our bonds. What you have before you is 3 resolutions, one for the high school for the $35 million with the POS, or the preliminary official statement, which is a story of Santa Barbara Unified School District. Tells the story so investors can look at us and say, yes, we want to buy their bonds. We also have a purchasing contract, which is the underwriter, the agreement between the underwriter and Santa Barbara Unified School District. So the resolution is there for the board's approval for the high school. We also have a high school refunding with a POS and a PC, purchasing contract, and also escrow instructions. However, at this time, we would like you to approve the resolution. However, we're going to hold the refunding because the interest rates are not high enough for us to make a significant savings on the refunding. So, pardon me?
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, low enough, sorry.
Did you say aye?
I did say aye.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
Sorry. I'm always thinking about higher, more money. So we'd like you to approve it so that when the market does get better, or the rates get better, that we can proceed with that instead of coming back to the board. And then again, we have exactly what we had in the high school for the elementary for the remaining $20 million. So we're asking you to give us permission to pass the preliminary official statement and the purchasing contract.
Thank you, Mr. Tay. Board, questions or comments?
But what if the rates do get higher?
Then we will be ready. Oh, you mean?
Well, you said you're waiting for more favorable rates to be lower, but they very well could go higher.
Right. Well, we don't have to. We don't have to do anything with the refunding. We can just have it sitting there waiting for the perfect opportunity.
Okay.
Mr. Herron?
First of all, anybody who wants to know anything and everything about Santa Barbara should read this 94-page document. I mean, it tells everything about the makeup of our community. So in one place, you don't have to go to economic reports. Just read this document and you'll find out everything. It's amazing. Whoever put that together, there's just a lot of information there, and very much appreciated. The thing that concerns me this time around, that I never raised the question the last times around, is all the important information is blank. So this is just a template. And once these are approved, it's strictly out of our hands as a board. We're not involved any way further, according to the documents.
That's correct.
I have just a few questions. On the refunding, and you explained this to me nicely in a note, but maybe the rest of the board might want to hear too. For a 2-year period, we're going to be, in essence, having 2 sets of bonds in existence.
That's correct.
And the money coming from the sale of these refunding bonds would go into an escrow account that theoretically makes enough money to make the payments for 2 years on the other set of bonds.
That's correct.
Can you explain how we make sure we don't lose money in that process?
Yes, there is an outside agency that calculates how much we need to cover the interest payments on it, and then she puts it into U.S. Treasuries. And then they generate enough interest to pay off, or to go towards that, to pay the interest off on those.
And I mean, there's sufficient opportunities out there to make enough money to pay off a 4.64% bond?
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to get a return of at least 4.64% to...
I'm not sure. We have Joanna Bose here in the audience from Kegent. She's our financial advisor, so maybe you can answer that question. You need to come up to the microphone, please.
Do I need to turn it on?
No.
It's on, thank you. Good evening. I'm Joanna Bose from Kegent Advisors. I am the district's financial advisor, have been for a number of years. Good evening to President Limon, members of the board, Superintendent Jeté, and all the staff members. I'm not sure that the interest rate on the 13, 14s, and 15s, which are the bonds that will be in the escrow, are 4.6%. I think they're lower coupons. So the way the practice works is there actually was a security that was created by the U.S. Treasury. They're called slugs. I can't tell you what the acronym means right now, and they are specifically for refunding issues. When interest rates have been as low as they've been, which you're correct about saying that, many districts have, through board approval, extended or expanded the kinds of investments they can go into. So there are certain securities that you can buy that are not slugs and are not just short treasuries. But they calculate that, and that's part of the cost of the financing. And the savings, all the savings that was in the refunding bonds, that's now gone because of the change in interest rates, at least for now, takes that into consideration as well. That's part of that. Is part of the cost of doing the financing. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
We're assured we're not going to lose any money.
Oh, no,
we're not going to have
no.
an interest rate
Right.
that we can't get the return on.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. As long as you're there, I'll keep going. I was happy to hear that we're not going to be doing the refunding bonds right away, because I did go back and find a couple documents that showed the current rate versus, at that point, getting a new rate of 3% or 3.06%, which obviously isn't available. But what I've also read articles that a large number of bonds have been pulled from the market, where school districts and other entities have just chosen not to go out and issue bonds. At what point do you make the decision and advise us that we shouldn't try?
If I may go back in time, the week of June 17th and the 24th, at the end of the week of June 17th, there was a tremendous change in the taxable market, the Treasury market, which was responding to, I'm sure you read about Chairman Bernanke's comments about ending this $85 billion of securities that they buy every month to keep our interest rates low. That really spooked all of the fixed income markets, the treasury markets, and the municipal markets, which do not always move in the same ways, were adjusted by 60 to 100 basis points. That means like a 4.5% to a 5.5%, or 3.5% to 4.5%. By the following Friday of the week of June 24th, they had already gotten 50 basis points back. One of the things that's very difficult about a volatile market is it's exactly that, it's volatile. So the big issues that were pulled were things like New York MTA. They were multi-million-dollar issues. There was a New York Transportation. There was a CHIFA, which is a California Health Financing Authority for St. Joe's Hospital. Those were all taken off the calendar. They've all since been brought to market because the market has settled down in the last 2 weeks. The difference, one of the differences between the revenue and their revenue bonds, those bonds are all paid for by a specific revenue. Think about a hospital has to have revenue to pay for the bonds, just like we're asking the taxpayers to pay for these bonds. They have, when interest rates go up like that, and it's so volatile, everybody is going to not sell their bonds that week. It's too volatile. And that's one reason why you have experienced people in those jobs, so they know when they recognize that. The market has now settled down. Interest rates are slightly higher. But those particular issues have to go back and figure out how they're going to pay for increased debt service, which is what they've done. So St. Joe's Hospital has come, MTA has come. There was a big Puerto Rico deal that came. So they've all since subsequently come, as well as many of the school GOs. Pleasanton, Sac City did a $40 million deal. They have all been in the market and sold this past week. So also general obligation bonds, because they are obligations that have been, that will be paid for by the taxpayers' permission, by their agreement to pay for debt service, are not so subject to the revenue issue as you would be with a revenue bond like a water bond or a hospital bond. Does that answer your I think that
Yeah, the follow-up question, though, is how do you, I mean, we're on a schedule that by August 28th, we're going to close this transaction. And just prior to that, we make the final decision on interest rates, yields, premiums, those kind of things. What parameters do you have to say to us, hey, let's not do it?
That's a good question. All schedules are flexible. And when you have an interest rate environment, a rising interest rate environment as we've had, you have to remain flexible. So if all of a sudden it was August 14th and we had planned to price that week, and we saw those kinds of changes in yields, we wouldn't price the bonds that week. And I'm sorry that our underwriter, Jeff Barada, is not here to explain that in greater detail. He had another meeting this evening. But it's a decision that's the district and myself and the underwriter. The underwriter is the closest one who's closest to the market, because one thing they do not want to do is sell your bonds at higher yields. The first deals that usually drop away, by the way, are the competitive sales, because none of the Wall Street firms will make bids on competitive sales in markets like that, because they can make a bid and buy bonds, and the next day they'll lose hundreds of millions of dollars. So we'll make that, as the time marches on into August, we'll see how the market is calm. I think that making a recommendation when to sell your bonds is sort of like, I was talking about this with Meg earlier, it's sort of like, when do you buy Apple? I've been trying to decide when to buy Apple stock. Do I buy it at $320 or $430? I mean, you do it, if you need money, then you sell your bonds. I do believe in my heart the interest rates are slowly bubbling up, and they will continue to bubble up. They have to. I mean, it's inevitable, because particularly on the short end of the curve. So I could say, well, you could wait till next February to sell your bonds if you don't need the money, but interest rates could be a lot higher. So I think if you need your money and the market is stable, and there are bonds that are pricing all around you, school districts, then I'm comfortable saying this is the time to price, and we'll get you the best price we can. Yes, if this were February, we would probably see better rates, but it's not. It's not going to be August or September, and we'll have to see what the market is. And if it's very volatile, then I'll make the recommendation that you wait, and we wait till it settles down.
And the last set of numbers we got from you was in May, so it's 2 months ago, thereabouts.
Right.
If you did the same computer runs today, how much difference would there be?
We did, and it affects your tax rate by 50 cents. On each of the on the elementary school and the secondary school. I was more concerned, if you remember the formula, that your tax rate is determined by your total debt service divided by your assessed valuation. So we're using a very conservative assessed valuation, and
The
we...
3%?
3%. Actually, I think this year it's 2%.
2%, but it
and-
goes
and
to
then
3
3%, right. And so I think the tax rate was 1980 and 2150, maybe, I can't remember
Something like
exactly, I'm sorry, I have it
It's
written down.
2175, and they're projecting to be 2225, or 1750 for the high and 1850.
And that's...
But I have to, just
Sorry.
1 second, Joanne, I have to mention that before we came in here, we did make a call to the county because their assessed values should be in. And I'm not allowed to say, but it's looking really good with the AV. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You can call it price yourself, right? Maybe he'll tell you. So
You have redone those?
oh, yeah, we did them
numbers?
today. We do them once a week at this point. And the closer we get to when we think we're going to sell the bonds, they'll be done every day. It's
Okay,
that important.
Then I guess my request would be, at some point in that process, I'd like to get a copy of the most current set of numbers.
Absolutely.
As long as you're doing it every day. I don't need it every day, but as we get down into the August time period, so I can see where we stand.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Meg answered a question for me that I didn't expect the answer, but I was going to ask you, why Piper Jaffray? It sounds like that's part of your team, and you work with the underwriters. And I was going to ask, as far as negotiating for us, I know you negotiate terms and conditions, but I was going to ask, do you also negotiate underwriters? I mean,
No.
do you go out and interview 5 underwriters to see what they would do at this given time? And how do you? And I found out we have a contract with Piper Jaffray, which I didn't know.
The board approved a contract in 2010. I was just actually on my computer trying to get back into, what's your Novus? That does all your, and I couldn't get back into 2010, so
Yeah.
we can get a copy for you. Jeff, they have that. First of
We
all,
have it.
I'm sure you have it. My fiduciary responsibility is to you, so I am not, if you will, married to any underwriter or any firm. That's not my job. My job is to evaluate them for my clients. Many times, we do requests for proposals. A lot of times, professional services are not under the Ed Code required to be out for the bid, if you will. There are some districts and some community colleges just choose their team because they like those people. They've used them a long time. There are other schools and community colleges that want to go through the process every time. And a lot of times in those cases, we just put out a form with a couple essay questions and what are you going to charge? So my job is to bring you what you need in an underwriter and discuss it with you and make sure you understand the differences between them. A lot of times you have interviews. I think it's important you like the people that you work with. I mean, that's one of the things I think is important. And that process was done, the interview process was done in 2010. But for your clarification, we don't, that process was just in place. So I don't negotiate that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until.
Yeah. As a financial advisor, I'm independent. I'm removed from all of that. I don't do money stuff. I don't do all those things. So I work for you and for your benefit only.
But if we had asked you to interview underwriters, you would have done that as part of your
Sure,
job. But
right.
we took that off the table, evidently. And you like Piper Jaffray?
It's a very good firm. They have underwritten since January 1st of this year over 164 community college and K-12 district bond issues. And I think that volume speaks very highly of their investment banking staff and their underwriter. Plus, you have me, and what I do is I look over their shoulder. You know, you have to be nice to everybody on the underwriting community because they can be tough. But it really, those days, that day of pricing, I'm no longer Jeff Barata's friend. He has to stand up and come up with the good rates, and we have a lot of arguments about that. Not in front of you, not in front of Meg. It's behind a closed door. But my job is to get the best price for you, and that's really when the hard part comes in, and we really separate ourselves.
And we have to be confident that you do that.
I think you should be. I think I'm very good at that.
I'm trying to make sure I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of articles lately about the influence that underwriters have in the elections. And everybody else that deals with school districts. but underwriters, number one, have been by far the greatest contributors to elections of bond issues.
621, yeah. The legislation 621 is
Yeah.
trying to correct that.
Yeah.
Got tabled 2 years.
Yeah, but they've been the biggest.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? What influence, what I've read is that 90% of underwriters who donate to a campaign get the business.
I personally am in favor of the legislation. There's legislation that's in Sacramento right now which would require that all underwriters, financial advisors, and bond counsels, the 3 people that you've seen before you who are involved in a transaction, would not be allowed to make any kind of campaign contribution to the district for a GO bond election. There are a lot of issues that swirl around this. I think it's a good idea. There is a very interesting argument against how I think, which is that because of California's laws, and you're not allowed to use your school funds for a GO bond election, who is to help you pay for it? I mean, yes, you form a committee, and yes, you raise money, but elections have gotten expensive. So if you're going to need $60,000, $70,000, why not have the consultants help? It looks like pay to play. It is pay to play. I mean, that's what we're talking about. But on the other hand, I know there are a number of people in Sacramento who feel very strongly that the schools need the support of those organizations who have the money. I can tell you, having been an investment banker, the firm that I worked with is true also with Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, and all the New York firms are no longer allowed to make contributions. The only people that make contributions now to California campaigns are the local firms. So it has narrowed.
And we could say the same thing about our architects, our
Yeah.
contractors, everybody.
They're saying they should
Yeah,
include
I
everybody.
understand totally the
Yeah,
difference
it's
between
interesting.
the everyday business that our friends, I mean, I wouldn't stand on a street corner holding my hat out for campaign contributions to run for this office. I go to my friends.
Yeah.
So I understand that.
Yeah.
But the discrepancy of what an underwriter donates versus normal people, normal entities, is huge.
It can be, yes.
And I guess my follow-up question was, do you think, I mean, again, reading these articles, time and time again, I see school board members saying, I didn't know that.
Oh.
I didn't know they did that. And I can say the same thing. In 2010, I didn't know that. But now that I've seen the campaign records, we had
It's all there in the
significant
record.
donations, and the underwriter continues to get our business and continues to donate to all of our campaigns.
One of the things that the compliance departments of the securities firms that do that now require is that they actually have a contract with you before they give you money. I mean, they've tried to make it appear that they have a relationship with you, that they have been approved by the district, and then they'll make a donation. I mean, that is something that has
Well,
happened.
that's why I want to see
in
the
recent years.
contract. Did we sign a contract and then get a huge donation?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, that kind of thing bothers me.
Uh-huh.
And I was stunned when I saw the significance of it, and the entities that solicited it. So in the future, I just hope that doesn't happen. I hope, if somebody's going to donate money to one of our bond issues, I'd like to know who they are and how much they donate, because it does have an influence on future business. In the actual document itself, and I'm sure that it's just a catch-all, but in the contract, on page 2, under the bonds, section number 2, it has a sentence about capital appreciation bonds. Is that just in there in case we were going to do capital appreciation bonds?
I must have missed that. It shouldn't be in there. That's probably a mistake on,
I think that when they
don't
produce
know.
these things, they are just templates, but we have no intention of.
no.
I just want to make
issuing-
it a record that even though it says there how the capital appreciation bonds shall initially be authorized,
That's a
that we're
mistake.
not doing capital appreciation
No, we're
bonds.
not.
Everybody understands that, and that's not on the
That's
table.
correct. There will
We-
be no capital
Yeah, we-
appreciation bonds.
We've made that clear from
Yeah.
the beginning.
But it just, when I saw it in the document, and I think if I read it correctly, it's just probably, hey, in the case you ever did it, which we aren't going to
I
do.
don't have, I'm sure you're probably.
And the
I'm
rest of
sure
the
you're right.
documents
Yeah.
show current interest bonds, so I'm not too worried about that, but I wanted to point out that one paragraph that caught my attention. And what's, remind me again, the need for the urgency to pass a resolution on refunding bonds? Is that in case you wake up some morning and the interest rates are so good, you can say, go for it?
Yes, and so then we don't have to come back, and especially since we only have one board meeting in July, if something really great happens and we can get those rates, then we would like to be able to act on it. But we're not going to get them unless we can get the rate we're looking for.
And what is that?
I knew you were going to ask that.
We usually talk, it's usually done as a percentage of savings, and the standard benchmark is 3%, and we've been looking at 5%. So it's below the savings, the dollar savings. I think,
The existing rates that are, the existing documents that was done back in February said, on average, we were 4.64, and we were going to reduce it down to 3.03 and save $1 million.
right, and I think now that when you lose money, you lose your savings more on your longer maturity bonds. That would be understandable. And those, because they have higher coupons, so they don't give you as much savings. So is it interest rates approach more of 4 7/8 or 5%? Or more importantly, if you're seeing 5% coupons or 5 1/4 coupons, which is what we've seen recently by some of the larger issues as dictated by the investor, then you also lose your savings because of the higher coupon.
Okay, but again,
I can get you, I can get Megan an interest rate.
I mean,
It's an all-in interest rate, so.
but to save $1 million in February, it would have taken an interest rate average of like just over 3%. What's the likelihood of we going back to 3%?
I don't think it's that likely. Not to 3%.
Pardon?
I don't think it's going to go back to 3%.
Yeah, so when would we ever refund?
Well, your savings, excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, when would we ever, if we can't get an interest
Well,
rate differential like that, when would we?
I believe the original present value savings was at 8 or 9%. So what the district would have to decide is whether or not a savings threshold of 5 or 6% would be satisfactory. For many years, 3% was what everybody hit. And then everybody went to 5, and then all of a sudden people had 14 and 18% savings on bonds because the interest rates were so low. And now interest rates have gone back up. So we're looking, as you've probably read a lot about, we're getting more like normalized, right? So as we get more normalized, 3% is going to be more in people's minds, but it's going to be hard for issuers to accept that because they've been seeing higher numbers. So that's something that needs to be addressed as we go forward and we look at the interest rates.
I'd like to have you give Meg, or maybe Meg knows that, have it, some documentation that says, here's the scenario for using the refunding bonds. Just what would be the parameters of doing that with the current, with our current bonds? Okay, thank you very much. And on this schedule, assuming we go forward, it just says that on August 7th, we're going to finalize the POS and post it. But yet the POS has all sorts of interest rate and terms and pricing included in it, but we're not going to know those, according to this, until August 14th, a week later. How can we do a POS and post it if we don't know the interest rates?
It's called a preliminary official statement because it's preliminary, and all of the blanks that you're looking at, and I know you've read it, deal with the selling of the bonds. So investors are used to looking at those blanks, if you will, because they are numbers that you can't be told. I can't tell you what the interest rates are going to be. I can't tell you what the total debt service is or the aggregate debt service. The only thing that's blank in your POS right now that should be in there is the county's investment policy, which they usually update quarterly. We also wanted to wait till we had the assessed valuations on August 1st. And that was another reason by waiting to price in August. We wanted to see what those were. So the preliminary official statement will be posted electronically. It gets circulated to all the investors and various underwriting firms, and it will not have any of those numbers in there.
So it'll be blank at that time, too?
Right.
Okay.
It's really interesting. It didn't come up till a couple of years ago. Someone said, as you said, well, there are all these blanks in here. And I thought, it's funny. It's what you're used to looking at. They're used to looking at that way. And then they'll look at the numbers. And when we get the final numbers that go in there, are all the numbers that we calculate on the day of sale. we know the interest rates. So,
Someplace in here also says that the underwriter would do his darndest to sell the bonds at the stated rates.
he has to. There's a rule about that.
But
Yes.
then, after that, he can
Mark them up or mark them down.
mark them up and down. Does that affect us at all?
No.
That's his baby.
They're addressing a different regulatory issue with securities firms.
So if they change it after the fact, we still get our money at our rate?
Right.
Okay.
They have to sell 10% of every maturity at the original price. And bond counsel goes through and checks that, make sure the orders, that's one thing I do, is make sure that 10% of the orders are also the original price.
Okay. At our last discussion of this, I think it was indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, that at the conference call part of this on August 13th, a member of the board or two members of the board would be invited to listen in on the conference call. Does anybody remember that?
I'm okay with that.
I would like to be one or
Alright.
two that sits in on the conference call.
Okay,
Thank you.
I will make a note of that.
Anyone else?
I'll sit in. All right. Any additional questions or comments, board? Thank you, Mr. Herron, for your thorough questions and analysis.
I'll take this one at a time then.
Thank you.
On item G3, I'll move to approve the resolution number 2013/2014-03.
Thank you, Dr. Buss. We have a motion made by Ms. Parker and seconded by Dr. Buss. Any additional discussion for item G3? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
On item G4, I move to approve the resolution 2013/2014-05.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Buss. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
And on G5, I move to approve the resolution number 2013/2014-04.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much to everyone, including Ms. Bowes. Thank you. We will move on to approval of Task 2 services under the current program management agreement with Telecu Construction Management for project management and implementation facilities master plan and preventative and deferred maintenance schedules. Mr. Hanyak.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, board members. I'm pleased to bring forward the approval of Task 2 for services. Back in 2012, when the board approved Telecu to come in and complete Task 1, it was anticipated there would be a Task 2 to do the reporting for the bonds, a facility master plan. We're asking them to take on some of the construction management, and we're asking them to help us with a plan of how often and a schedule with associated costs for preventative and deferred maintenance. And I think this is part of what the board was hoping to get. They wanted information on what it would take dollar-wise to keep our facilities in top shape, whether it be asphalt, roofs, replastering swimming pools, things that typically preventative maintenance is something done on an annual basis, and deferred maintenance is something that is done on a basis of no more frequent than 5 years, per the general definition. So when we talk about deferred maintenance, it's things like a major overhaul of a boiler, whereas every year you go through and you do certain things to a boiler, but not a major overhaul. If you look at refinishing gym floors, we do that every other year. So that would be a preventative type maintenance, not a deferred type maintenance. And preventative maintenance is usually funded out of routine restricted maintenance, which used to be the 3% that the state wanted you to hold back if you accepted bond money, which I understand under the new rules and regulations is now up to the discretion of the board as to what % they would allocate to that. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Cash and Meg. And so what we're doing is we're asking Telecu to assist us with these services. We just don't have the manpower or woman power in the district to accomplish these things.
Good correction.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Bass.
The one question that came to mind for me in terms of, I mean, I understand the rationale for it, and I think you summarized it with your last statement. You don't have the manpower or the woman power to do the work at this point in time. But the one question that did come to mind when I was reading the contract was why we did not include a not-to-exceed clause, or maybe it's in there and I did not see it. So.
It's not in there, but we certainly can, after we've had an opportunity to have Telecu analyze the projects, we can include that as a not-to-exceed.
Yeah, I would actually hope that we do that, because for me it would feel more comfortable knowing that we're going to cap it at some point in time, and right now it just seems really open-ended on my part.
We'll continue to, and I was remiss in not providing the last quarter statement to the board on what the cost was for task 1, and you'll get an analysis of that this week. But if you weren't on the board, I apologize for this. It was the previous board when we discussed the total scope of the project costing somewhere between 1% and 2% of the total bond measure in order to complete all the projects on time, and that is somewhat expedited with our need to complete the projects within a 36-month time period, or at least be under contract after the sale of the bonds. So, but that certainly is something that we would bring forward to the board after we've had a chance to hear from Telecu and have our own staff analyze that. You bet.
Any additional questions or comments? Ms. Parker?
Well, just, yes, I mean, we originally looked at all of the documentation over a year ago, and I think that maybe, especially given that there were 2 new board members, it might have been nice to see the entire package again, because I think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding out there that we're doing something new tonight, when really we're not.
Right.
And this is just clarifying that we're moving on from task 1 to task 2. And you know, essentially increasing the scope, which will cost more money.
We can certainly post that as a board brief to you, so the public would have access to that, and make sure that the entire matter is, so everybody has the information again. I think that's a good idea.
I think that would be great. And I appreciate your point, Mr. Hetjonk, that we essentially don't have the manpower to create the kind of documentation that we need and project management that we need to be sure that we have the overarching view that we need to have. Even on items like deferred maintenance, I know that we are understaffed and tend to scramble and go from work order to work order rather than figuring out big picture. And I really think in the long run it'll end up saving us money by doing it this way. Not only that, but just to have the services, the facilities that we expect for our students and staff. I think it's important that we move forward this way.
And we are saving some money, in fact, because we've already spent some money. Telecu's gone through and done a assessment of all our facilities, and now that doesn't have to be redone. It just has, part of that assessment gets converted into these schedules. So we've done half the work, and I really want to thank the board for approving that. It's something that a complete assessment like that is something that I've never been able to do. Other districts and other entities I know have done it, but we've not before been able to do that. And it's such a valuable piece of information and such a great planning tool to assist us to do things like this and document where we are and where we need to be or where we want to be. And it gives you the information you need to make good decisions.
Mr. Herron and Dr. Buss.
I'll comment the same as Ms. Parker. I might have been skeptical a year ago when we did this contract, not knowing exactly who Telecu was or what they would do or how they would do it. But for the public to know, the last year has been tremendous change. We have more information now on every one of our facilities, as to what needs to be done. We prioritized, or they prioritized with our help, how to spend the remainder of the bond money that we will hopefully be getting soon. So we know exactly where it's going to be spent, how it's going to be spent. Highest priorities in this district. It was a very balanced approach to get things done that was obviously the highest priority. And I think that was missing in previous bonds. I think there wasn't an emphasis on the highest priority. So I think they did a tremendous job to this point. I'm more than happy to go on to phase 2. I think their fees have been reasonable, those that I've seen. And I've been a vocal advocate, I mean, everybody I think knows it, since I campaigned on the state of our facilities. I mean, I can remember the porta potties that kindergarten kids used, and you probably remember that too, Mr. Het-Young.
Too many.
Too many. And, you know, I continue to believe that our facilities need to be better maintained. Your staff is putting out fires. They can't do a long-range plan. Hopefully, by the time Telegu gets done with phase 2, we will once again have a priority on how to maintain our facilities over a long term, how to replace our portables, when to replace them if we need to, when to modernize classrooms, that we can do as part of an everyday maintenance rather than through the bond money, because we didn't include modernization of too many rooms, but maybe do it in this maintenance plan. And I'm hoping to see the day when we will transfer some funds from the unrestricted account into the maintenance accounts so we can get back to doing maintenance on our buildings. And I think the public and the students demand it, and I'm very pleased to support going on to phase 2.
Thank you.
Dr. Buss?
Yeah. I wanted to echo some of the comments that Ms. Parker and Mr. Herron said, because I think the important point in all of this is making sure we have a lot of the issues that we're facing documented, and that we have a plan to address them. And that, for me, that's the best thing. I mean, information is key for all of us who are doing this, and staff really need that. You need that. So I'm really, I've been impressed up to this point in time with the work that Telegu has been doing, and I think that it speaks for themselves for the amount of work that I mean, you look at the volume, and that's just wow. And so if we're going to get something similar, maybe not so big, but similar in terms of the deferred maintenance, yes, I would be very happy to see that.
All right. And I also, actually, I want to thank you and your team, because the whole facilities and maintenance team has taken on so much over the years. And as happy as I am to have some organization, some forward thinking, some strategic planning from Telegu, I also know that the quality of that would not be as good if it wasn't for the team that we have in place here at the district. I agree. I think there's been a lot of setting out fires. And I, too, look forward to a time or a conversation in the near future where we can talk about what we need to do to restore some of the first areas that were really cut, I think, due to budgets, and areas that students and parents and teachers see every single day. We've talked about the paint on the walls and the clocks that don't work, and it's just part of a daily experience that unfortunately impacts the students and our school communities as a whole. So I also would be okay with moving forward to phase 2 and look forward to getting a little bit more information from Telegu on what the potential cap would be, so that it's, again, part of the forward thinking. If we put funds into this now, what kinds of savings hopefully will it have in the future?
Thank you, and I'll relay those comments to the people that are so busy that make my staff and myself look good every day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right. So I will take a motion, if there is one.
I move to approve Task 2 services under the current program management agreement with Telegu Construction Management for project management and implementation, facilities master plan, and preventative and deferred maintenance schedules.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any additional discussion All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We're ending our action agenda item with student discipline cases. If anybody would like to make any motion.
In case 12/13-29, I'll move to approve the hearing panel recommendation for a school year expulsion.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
And in 12/13-31, I move to approve the hearing panel recommendation for a suspended expulsion for 1 school year.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Can I ask who seconded the first discipline?
Mr. Herron.
Mr. Herron.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to the conference agenda items, and we have first reading of revision to Administrative Regulation 5125.1, release of directory information.
Welcome, Mr. Torina, our new Director of Pupil Services, to the podium with his first presentation.
Thank you, President Limon, esteemed board members, Dr. Cash, assistant superintendents. We're looking at amending the Administrative Regulation Release of Directory Information in regards to the FERPA Act and Education Code 49073 to add the addition of photographs and grade level for students. And we want to do that to basically align ourselves with our current practice and be in compliance with those codes and acts.
Board questions or comments?
Just a question, just to be sure that there's no conflicts with Ed Code on it. Otherwise, it makes a lot of sense to me to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
All right.
May I move this to consent for the next meeting?
I believe so.
All right.
Thank you. And next, we have the first reading of revisions to Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 1113, district and school websites.
Mr. Torina is also taking this. Ms. Kiani would normally be taking this, but we let her have a vacation this summer.
Wow.
So we're looking at doing a revision of the board policy and Administrative Regulation 113 in regards to our school and district websites for our students who are maybe seen in photographs throughout the district. Prior, without notification, they will be just displayed on the district websites and also the school websites. We want to create a opt-out form for those parents of students who do not want their images seen through the district or through their school sites.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Ms. Parker?
Again, far less cumbersome. I think this is a great transition. You know, the original code was, or the original AR and BP were never really taking into account what was going on with websites in particular, and schools wanting to put up pictures quickly of special events. And I think this will be much better, and parents who don't want their kids to have their pictures up can simply opt out.
And we will make sure and keep those opt-out forms on file at the Personnel Pupil Services and make sure that Barber County knows when she goes to a school site who's not to be photographed.
And I have a question too about that. Will the forms be part of the beginning of the year
Yes.
packages? Okay. Thank you. All right.
Is this another item I may move to consent at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Torina.
Thank you very much.
Good job on your first presentations. Next, we have Dos Pueblos High School new course approval. Principles of Marketing.
Yes, sir. I would like to invite Assistant Principal Bill Woodard from Dos Pueblos High School to talk about the program, talk about the course.
Good evening, President Limon, members of the board, Dr. Cash, Dr. Dradi, Mr. Tay, everybody. I'm here to introduce actually Mr. Yamahata, who is our business ROP teacher. This course that we are proposing is a concentrated course in our business pathway, and it's got some really cool e-commerce and e-marketing components that he can speak more informed about than I am. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. Yamahata right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're starting career pathway. We have two career pathways at Dos Pueblos High School. One of them has a computer accounting class, which is the concentrator class. The marketing, sales, and service it will have now this principles of marketing class. So what we want to try to do is differentiate between the two career pathways so that we have one kind of statistical, computers, accounting, and then the other one more marketing, sales, and service. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I should say, with our capstone class, Dr. Cash was instrumental in getting the virtual enterprise class going at Dos Pueblos High School. So I really want to thank him for that. I guess part of all the work I'm doing, it's his fault for getting the class going there. And also, just a little history is that I started this a couple of years ago, and then during that time, keep in mind this is a career pathway, career technical education class through ROP. The person that I was working with, Cheryl Malone, she retired, and so I was working with Dr. Bauer. I was working with Cynthia White, and then Dr. Drade got brought in. And then I was working with Ryan Gleason and so Bill Woodard. So just in the course of about a year or two, all three people changed and needed to figure out what was going on. So I'm really grateful that they really picked up the ball, got things going, particularly Bill Woodard to figure out what happened to this class. And so I'm very proud to present this now before you and hope that it'll get improved.
Thank you. Board, any questions or comments? Ms. Parker?
I just think I'm looking at I'm really wondering, and after what you said, it looks like you actually have been working on this for more than a year. Mm-hmm. It just looks terrific. I mean, it looks so relevant and a great part of your pathway. So
thank you very much. We live in an information age, so I really think that if students decide not to go into marketing as a career, they still need to market themselves. They still need to sell themselves. Those are soft skills that will take them through their career no matter what choice they make. So that's something that I really think that's important for students to do.
Great.
And they'll be able to use this in a lot of careers. As I looked through all these objectives, I was like, oh, they can use that in this field and that field. So that's actually pretty great.
Okay. I'd also like to thank Lori Clayton, who's our ROP counselor. She's here slightly wounded today, but she did come in during her time to be able to offer her support.
Thank you. Ms. Edelson?
I just had a question on the A to G meeting. How will that work?
As far as that's concerned, it'll just be an elective class.
So that'd be the G or not, nothing?
Oh, you know what?
It says G, okay.
It's E. Right there. What A through G?
Okay. And will that be acquired before the class is offered, or that designation meeting that requirement?
The applications for all those will go in the fall with the assistant principal, so
Great.
this will be one of the courses.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Is this an item I could move to the consent agenda for next board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in during your summer, both of you.
All right. Next, we have Santa Barbara Junior High School new course approval, acting for camera.
Santa Barbara Junior High School is interested in teaching this course. The course is basically the integration of the essential principles of acting in the dramatic world with the more technologically dependent realm of film and television. I'd like to introduce Santa Barbara Junior High instructor, Mr. Rich Lashua, to talk more about the program and then open up the questions.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me out tonight. So this acting for camera class is sort of a blend of existing elements we've had at this school in specific and in the district as a whole, with some new technologies. Basically, we're taking the idea of theater classes, which we've had, and we're taking video production, which we've had in the past but don't currently, and then incorporating technology such as the iPads, the editing on computer, YouTube, things like that to put a more comprehensive program together. As you well know, we're all really focusing on Common Core these days, and there is nothing more Common Core than the arts, because you have to synthesize, you have to interpret, you have to take all of the information you've learned in all those other classes and analyze them and put them back out into a finished product. So this class is really, in my vision, designed to be kind of a stepping stone for many different programs that students could be entering into high school. This would include the VADA Academy, the MAD Academy, anyone interested in the theater arts at any of our high schools will all get something out of this class, and it kind of also reaches them on their level with the fun idea of movie making and video production. So we will be doing things from a more journalistic type thing, like a school news show, to creating their own little miniature skits and movies to base off of different standards that I select at the time.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
So Santa Barbara Junior High does not currently do a weekly video news program?
That is correct.
I'm surprised. Okay. So you don't have a video tech class?
No.
And so this is kind of a hybrid between the video tech that some of the other junior highs have and theater. Great.
Yes.
Okay. It's terrific. Where are you going to get your curriculum from?
I am basically going to be adapting it based off of the standards that were listed here. Much of it overlaps already with the theater curriculum that I currently teach. For example, we do things such as analysis of a storyline, the beginning, the middle, the end, the conflict, rising action, all of those elements. And so now we'll be doing the same things, but just doing it on film instead of acting out on stage. Other elements will be such as analyzing various forms of film. What's the difference between a documentary and a comedy, or a romance movie and an action movie, and so on, and maybe putting together the little miniature projects to show that they understand.
Do you plan to do a weekly news show, or do you plan to do like a monthly one? Because it sounds like you're going to have a lot that these kids are doing. I don't even know if you'll have the time to just do a weekly production, which is a huge endeavor in and of itself.
Correct. I would say monthly is more feasible.
Okay.
Yes, in a perfect world, weekly, but this is the first time shot, so we'll kind of see how it goes.
Well, and it's sort of a different focus than some of the other video tech classes that I've seen.
Also true.
So, okay, thank you.
Dr. Bass?
I am totally supportive of this in lots of different ways, because I think that, the use of technology, just like the previous one we were talking about marketing, being able to take that, be able to communicate as a student and be able to sell yourself. This is another venue in doing that in sort of the same light. So I think it plays on lots of different things, the use of technology, being able to communicate effectively, being comfortable, and taking all those skills and applying them. So I think it's a great concept. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Edelson?
I'm looking here at equipment needs, and I see iPads and Apple TV, so it looks like you've got it, right?
Yeah, most of it is already in place. I currently have an Apple TV in my classroom, and I have one class iPad in my classroom, but the library has a class set that I can check out with regularity.
And camera-wise?
Well, the iPad will be the camera. That's the major change. We did have a video production class before that did have tape cameras where we would then upload to desktops and edit that way. Now it's all done on the iPad. So there's iMovie, which is an app that you can get, and so you film it all using the camera app, you edit it all on iMovie, and then you can export it to a website, or they can email it to me, or we can burn discs off of a desktop, things like that.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, that.
Is this a matter I can bring to the consent agenda the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
for
for your
taking
time.
time out tonight.
Thank you.
Next we have Santa Barbara High School new course approval, First Science. Principal
I would like to,
Vecchio.
yes. Mr. Vecchio, principal of Santa Barbara High School.
Good evening, board members, superintendents. Second board meeting in a row. Happy to be here.
It was your summer plan, right? You were going to come to all of ours this summer, and you're on track.
First Science is very exciting to us. This comes from a true need we have at our school. A group of science teachers, 5 of our science teachers, in fact, came to me with an idea to meet the needs of some of our freshman students that are coming in. They enter our Algebra ABC series, so they are below grade level in math. These students really struggle in the lab science, end up not liking lab science. So the idea was brought to me by these teachers to actually have these students not take their lab science as freshmen and instead enter them into the First Science course, which would be a themed course. It's 4 teachers that share 120 kids or 130 kids. They switch each quarter. So they have a certain cohort of kids for one quarter, and then they switch to another teacher, switch to another teacher, then switch to the 4th teacher. And each of those teachers picks up a theme. So you have this in front of you. The themes are engineering, and there should be some description of some of the labs that they've come up with that they'd like to do with the students. Biotechnology, computer technology, and then a green tech focus. And so the idea is that while the students are in their freshman year catching up on their math and learning their algebra skills, that we would be teaching them some of the stuff that they would need to be successful lab science students, and that there's a hook there because there's going to be some real world relevant experiences that they do with labs, learning the inquiry and hypotheses and things like that, so that they will enter into a lab science and actually have been front loaded with how to be a lab science student. And so that's the idea behind the First Science course.
Thank you. Board, questions, comments? Ms. Parker?
For somebody else to go first. The content looks really engaging, and it looks really well thought out, and I understand the need. My concern with this is, how does this not become another earth science? What students are going in, I can see already what students are going in, and we've had this issue. It's when you have an opportunity like this, to put students that are perhaps underperforming as they're going into high school into these lower level classes, that it starts to creep, and it becomes really a situation where we end up disadvantaging students. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. It's at the same time, you want to get kids to keep taking science, so I understand, I mean, it's a real dilemma. But that's my concern with this one, is how can you at Santa Barbara High tell me that this is not going to turn into earth science?
It's a good question. That actually was my main concern as well. And what we did is we did away with the earth science. And so those kids went into physics. And that's a struggle. It was a struggle for the teachers. And so they came to me and said, hey, this is really a struggle. The students are having a real tough time in the lab science. And so my charge to them was to come back to me with a very student-centered, not adult-centered. So not how do I relieve myself of having student discipline problem, that kind of thing. It was how do we really create something that works for this student, this particular type of student. And so they came back with a plan that was, and the 5 of them, the 5 teachers were very focused on what is the need of that student. And I told them when they come back, I'm going to be pressing on that very issue. I do not want it to be a dumping ground in earth science. And so I think if you read through, you'll see that this is way different than earth science. Earth science is a year-long course of earth science. I mean, if you look at this, they're in a theme for a quarter, and then they move to a different theme, different teacher. They start new, which is very important for that student. A year-long course is a very long course, and then having it be earth science makes it feel like 2 years, I'm sure.
Well, for me, if we were to approve this is something that I'd really want to monitor very closely.
Yeah.
So that we could see, and I'd really like to look at your data pre and post in terms of your kids, these kids that were going into a college prep physics, and then perhaps we're trying to, just do the bare minimum of science. Are they more likely with this to take, 2 years of lab science after this instead of, the 2 years of science it takes to graduate from high school? So those are things that I want to watch, and I want to be sure that it doesn't expand and just recreate a problem.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and we will be looking at that very closely. And I just think the structure is if you look into that, look at the structure, it's way different than earth science. Earth science is, it's textbook, it's worksheets of earth. It's not lab, it's not activities, it's not collaborative, it's not any of that. And so what this was designed to be is it is an elective. course, so it's not a science, it's not a lab science course. But they will be constantly engaged in the lab activities, collaborative work, things that we know students like to engage in. They want to learn that way.
So Mr. Vecchio has heard me talk about how I feel about life science and earth science for the past 2 years. Very similar to, I think, Board Member Parker's gut feeling. But the indicators that we'll look at in order to evaluate its effectiveness will include the demographics of the students, their 8th grade science. Right now, we have CSTs. Who knows what they'll be called 2 years from now. And it will take 3 years, though, in order to really have a good comparative analysis. But I think at the end of the first semester, maybe even at the end of the first month, would be good to bring back to the board, either through a board brief or in some correspondence, an update on who is in the class.
Ms. Parker?
Following up on that, as we were talking about this being considered an elective in the A to Gs, and I noticed on the forms, we really concentrate on the A to Gs, but not on what about our own requirements. We require, 2 years of science to graduate from high school?
Yes.
Will this count as a year of their science to graduate from high school?
I don't believe it will.
It won't, so they'll still have to take 2 further years?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't want it, we still want them to engage in the lab science. We just want them to be successful at that. And so we think front-loading what it will be like to be in a lab science with this course will allow them to go on to take our 2 years of science.
But then they would be required to take science through senior year if they were going to go to four-state.
For a 3rd year, yes.
Ms. Edelson?
She just asked the question, I was thinking. No, I think it looks good. I think, rationally speaking, I think getting, the kids interested in a lot of these topics, I think will be exciting and hopefully work towards that end of getting them in more successful at chemistry. And so would then the additional sciences from there, the lab sciences, potentially be the chemistry and I guess biology or physics?
Or physics.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, there has to be a life science and a physical science.
Okay.
Yes.
We have one of the teachers that helped design the courses here tonight, Ashley Cornelius, and she's still here. These are 5 just fantastic people and fabulous teachers that are involved in this too, and that really excites me more than even the design of the course is who came to me with the ideas. These are just fantastic people. They love kids, and they're really smart and very good instructors. So. But anyways, Ashley's here if you have some questions. She was involved in the design of the course as well.
Would you like to add anything?
I would love to.
Okay, all right. Just since I sat here this whole evening, but he spoke strongly of 5 teachers, and it was more than that. There were 5 core teachers that met every meeting that we spent discussing all of these questions that you brought up yourselves. But there were other teachers that supported us, and there were at least 3 other teachers who really helped us and guided us. And to have such a strong collaboration among our teachers was just the best work I've done since I've started teaching here. Just to address the main concern about not letting it turn into an earth science, and that our whole goal was to give them stuff about science that they would be excited about, so that then they went into the other college, college prep sciences, that they would be excited about it and see a pathway for them. We know not every student is going to end up being a scientist, but we love science so much that we believe that we can pull them through and get them excited about school and science just through this one class. Yeah, I mean, the whole goal is to get them into a pathway and to be able to get them into something that they're interested in or see a career ahead of them, and then to see the motivation for making it through physics or chemistry or whatever the hard science is going to be for them, to give them that goal of, I'm going to make it through physics so I can be a computer engineer. I'm going to make it through physics so that I can go be a nurse. I'm going to make it through these classes to get to an end goal that is exciting for us. So, I don't know. Okay. Dr. Buss?
I'm just going to thank you for actually commenting, because that's the piece that is kind of missing within the, the proposal, is sort of the enthusiasm and the fact that kids need to be excited about science. And that's the question I was going to ask before you came up. I was like, how are we going to get them excited about the science part? So I'm glad that you're speaking to that, and I can hear it in your voice that you're really passionate about it. So thank you.
I'm willing to support it and try it out, I guess, and to see I'm all about pathways. I like pathways, but I like pathways to have equitable outcomes. And so given the history, I think that that's probably where our concern is coming from. Not that the concept is a bad one. I think we're all excited about it, but we want to make sure that the outcome is also an equitable one that gives them options. So I look forward to seeing some of that data that will come forward, and maybe even hearing from a student who's in the class. So, thank you.
Is this an item I can move to the consent agenda at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have Principal Becchio again. Green chemistry.
Green chemistry, okay. So green chemistry, am I also doing medical biology?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
It's out of order. I'm going to ask the Madam President if we could take that next after
Yes,
this
we
one.
may.
Okay.
Okay, so both those courses, green chem, medical biology, came out of us seeing that we had some very significant interest from our student body in both our sports medicine pathway and our our APES class, our AP Environmental Science. That's our most popular course. It fills up 6 sections and then some. And so we have a lot of interest in that area. We started a green technology and engineering class last year, and that filled up and then some without really any advertising about that class. So we know we have a very large interest in green issues. And so this course came about to, what we'd like to do is make it's a chemistry course, and it's a college prep chemistry course. It's covering the content that a chemistry course covers, but through the vehicle of green issues. And so the idea is that we can put it out there as a green chemistry so the kids that are interested in that theme could take that course rather than just the college prep chemistry. That whole concept is the same thing for the medical biology class as well. And so if I'll take some questions from you if you have it on green chem.
So questions on green chemistry or medical biology, or comments?
And just real quick, medical biology is created by Ashley too, so she's here. She can speak on medical biology.
We like your excitement.
For me, I do have a question in terms of the green chemistry. So I know this is it's a big field in lots of different ways, and we have the wonderful Bren School of Environmental Science out in UCSB, and so would you say that your desire is that students would follow those sort of pathways into that higher education field of looking at environmental science as one area possibly they could pursue in terms of their experience in this class?
We think that is going to happen with both those classes because the kids are going to either select biology or medical biology or chemistry or green chemistry. So we feel like the kids that are going to select those courses have some interest in those areas and will likely go on to some of our other courses as well as some courses beyond high school.
Mr. Herron?
At one point in the past, you contemplated a Green Academy. Would this fit into that? I know you don't have it anymore, but would this fit into that concept long term?
Yeah, we're in discussions right now over the last 2 years about the Green Academy. And we really see that as Santa Barbara High offering a series of courses that have the green theme in them that students can select. And so in place of physics, they would maybe take a green physics. We don't have that yet, but we may be coming back to you for a green physics as well. But green chemistry, AP Environmental Science, projects and sustainability, those kind of things are ideas we have right now. We're going to formalize those and may come back to you with a series of courses that we would like to offer.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker? Oh,
Well, should I go?
Ms. Edelson,
I just
go
had, I'm looking at the medical one, and I'm just wondering, on the green chemistry, what year are you let's see, I may have jumped ahead, but for the chemistry, does that have a grade level, or not so much?
It says 10 through 12.
10 through 12, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's also area D?
Yes.
Okay. And then also the medical one is D also, okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
Ms. Parker.
It's been so long ago since we started talking with Santa Barbara High about a Green Academy that I almost, it's all sort of become a blur in my mind. I felt like there was already green chemistry, but I guess that it was Ms. Park talking about green chemistry and that it actually hadn't been implemented yet, but it's great to see that it's coming forward. And I've been hearing about green engineering. I don't know how close that is to fruition.
That's a course elective course?
That is an existing elective
Yes.
course, so that's part of this whole.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great.
How many courses are you thinking will be offered in this greenness?
Greenness? I would say probably 6.
Okay.
It's just a guess. Some, APES will be one of them, which we already offer, AP Environmental Science, and most schools do. And then there'll be the Green Chem, we have the Green Technology and Engineering, the Project Sustainability, Food Production. There's a few that they're kind of formulating and interested in having as options for kids that are interested in going on to study environmental science later.
And just for clarification for the board, the Green Academy is not taking the traditional structure of an academy, but rather it's course offerings, just so we're clear on, because I think some of us have heard about the Green Academy and have been trying to follow.
Right. I've been doing that as well,
Okay.
and trying to follow what really is this. I've been talking to Melissa Woods and Jose Caballero about what is the Green Academy, what are we doing with Green Academy. Their concept is that they'll offer a series of courses and they want anyone to be able to take them. So I don't even know if that will be a academy that comes before you for approval of as an academy, but instead a option of courses or menu of courses that kids that have that interest can elect to take in place of a regular, say, bio or chemistry. So that we're kind of shoring that up right now, and we'll likely come back to you, or you'll hear more about what direction we want to take with that. But I don't think they want to have they don't want to have an application process and vet who gets in and who doesn't. They just want to be able to have kids in those courses. If they complete the series, possibly they get some kind of certificate from us that they completed our green series. Maybe they just want to take one green course. So that seems to be the direction that they want to go with it.
And it sounds like there's a team of teachers thinking and conceptualizing those offerings. Okay, great. All right.
I have one question. When are you going to change the courses to the olive courses? Aren't you guys olive and gold?
We're trying to change Nopal Street to Nopal Street to Gold Street.
Okay,
So we'll do that first. Because we have olive on this side of campus.
Yes, I know you do.
Gold. It would be nice if Nopal Street was Gold.
I'm sure that'll happen.
Do you want to hear from Ashley? You've heard from me 2 weeks in a row, or 2 meetings in a row.
Anything you'd
Any
like
questions
to add?
about medical bio?
Medical bio?
No,
Good.
that's being offered other places in the state already.
So are these 2 courses that I could bring to the consent agenda at our next meeting?
Yes.
All right.
Ms. Parker?
And I have a question, I think it might be for Dr. Drotti, and that is, when is the 13-14 integrated course catalog going to be coming out with, I presume, some of these new classes that were just...
We have some questions regarding some of the CTE course pathways that we need to correct.
Mhm.
So by next week.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we have discussion of Common Core mathematics, traditional versus integrated. Dr. Cash, or
Well, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Drotti, we got a whole bunch of great teachers back there, so.
I would like to introduce 2 of our math teachers who were just hired to serve as teachers on special assignment at the district level to help facilitate the district-wide implementation of the Common Core state standards in mathematics. Mrs. Janet Hollister is a longtime and respected math teacher from La Cumbre Junior High School. And Dr. Craig Snyder has recently served as a program improvement coordinator at San Marcos and has been the lead person charged with facilitating the professional learning of the district's math teachers. They will talk a little about the work they've engaged in this year, talk about where we are in terms of decisions the district will need to make regarding the math path, the path for math, and we'll open the discussion for questions.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for having me here. And first, I just actually want to acknowledge all of our math teachers that have joined us here today. We've got Tracy Womack from La Colina and Geraldine Fikes from San Marcos, and then Janet Hollister is back there too. And we've all been working, including some other teachers that aren't here today, but we've all been working really hard at learning about Common Core mathematics, Smarter Balanced, and we spent basically this entire year working together trying to learn what are the changes that are going to be happening for us here in K-12 mathematics. And we know it's huge. And one of the biggest changes that we're going to have to think about is this traditional versus integrated course sequencing for the high school level, higher level mathematics courses of Common Core. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you today. And so it's a whole new map. Common Core mathematics, really we've got Common Core math, we've got the old 97 math standards of California. They are not even on the same roadmap. And so we need to think about what pathways, what routes are we going to take on this new map of Common Core math? And that is this discussion of integrated versus traditional. Not quite looking like it did on my computer here. So what I want to let you know about is that Common Core mathematics, the three biggest instructional shifts that we're going to have to make in terms of teachers' instructional practice every day is thinking about these three areas, and it's hard to see the three areas up there. But Common Core mathematics is going to have focus for kids. It is focusing on a small number of domains of mathematics versus the 97 math standards, a broad sweep of a lot of math topics. That's going to be a big change for our math students, a big change for our teachers. The rigor, the depth of knowledge that Common Core math is going to have to take in our classes is extremely deep compared to the, I would call, surface level depth of knowledge of the 97 math standards that we were operating under, honestly, even this school year, even though we were starting to make this transition to Common Core math. The biggest thing I want to talk to you about today is coherence. The biggest instructional shift that we're going to make is coherence and making it explicit to kids, the coherence of mathematics. And here's what I mean by that. The mathematics, Common Core math standards really helps kids explicitly make connections between topics. As math teachers, we always know that math topics are connected. We know that the work that kids did in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, they're all connected. But our kids typically didn't know all those connections were there. They saw the 97 standards. Even if our teachers were very explicit about here's the standards that we're working on today, they saw them as a set of isolated little topics, a little skill here, a little rule there to learn and practice. Common Core math is going to explicitly help kids see the connection, see that mathematics as a discipline has structure. To see, because with the goal of having mathematics make sense, and this idea that K-12 mathematics, Common Core mathematics was written with this notion of a progression of learning from kindergarten through 12th grade. Students are going to see how this learning that they've done in earlier grades is the foundation for their work that they're going to have in higher mathematics, including college-level mathematics, which is what the goal is of Common Core math, get them to college and career readiness. So I want to talk a little bit more, give you a visual of this coherence that Common Core is going to look like. I'm going to point out some things here. The top, with the big arrows going across, are the math practices of Common Core mathematics. The Common Core standards, that is an integral part of the content and the work that students are going to be doing in Common Core mathematics. 97 math standards in California, had reasoning standards that were really kind of forgotten about. The lower part here is the progression of content from kindergarten all the way through high school. And you can see those bands, those rows, are the domains, the focus, narrowed focus on big ideas of mathematics. Number and operation, for example, operations in algebraic thinking, geometry. When you go down, when you go across, you see the coherence from kindergarten through 12th grade, because what happens in middle school, for example, in ratio and proportion, is built from what happens in number and operation, base 10, kindergarten through 5th grade, et cetera, all the way through to high school. So this visual of coherence is what all of us in Common Core world across this country are operating on. Actually, I want to point out, I got this slide from the Kentucky Department of Education. This is the nice thing about Common Core, is that all of us, well, 45, 46 states, and Washington, D.C., and Guam, and it's all of us doing this together, which means we can share in the workload of Common Core mathematics. So this was a great find from the Kentucky Department of Education. Perfect, that'd be great. And as we figure out the zoom, I'm going to get you back to this picture here. K-8, those domains that you see there in the rows, those are all integrated. Each grade level, students will learn. So for example, in 3rd grade, a student will learn a little bit of number and operation, a little bit of number, operation, and fractions, algebraic thinking, geometry, a little bit each year. When they get to 6th grade, again, their math learning will be integrated. And that's actually pretty similar to what happened in the 97 standards. We had grade level standards for K through 8. The difference is when we get to high school, I think it's okay. That'll be fine. Okay. The difference is when you get to high school, Common Core mathematics at the high school level, which is synonymous with the phrase, I want to zoom the other way, higher level mathematics. And the difference for high school level mathematics in Common Core land is that we're only I think it's good. Yeah, thanks, no problem.
We also have a copy here.
That's in high school. Again, look at the focus. For all 3 years of high school mathematics that fall under Common Core, it is these 6 conceptual categories of mathematics that students are focused on. Each one of these, except for the last one there, modeling, has a set of standards. They're not grade level standards, they're not course standards. They are an integrated bunch of standards. Modeling has no standards except the idea is threaded through the other 5. And so that's big because 97 math standards, they had, in California, had very specific course level, as you're aware of, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and the only thing you did in Algebra 2 was Algebra 2. In high school level mathematics, it's going to be all of this, because the assessment of this higher level mathematics happens in 11th grade in an integrated fashion, which we'll talk about. So just to highlight the point, the pathway in Common Core mathematics at the higher level, at high school level, there is no courses that the standards don't outline specific courses. However, the standards do give a suggested or model examples of a course sequence. CDE also did that too. When they wrote their framework, they've got a set of courses that are sequenced that you can do in a traditional way or in an integrated way. So we'll take a look at that right now. So for K-8, the sequence is integrated because every grade level has a set of 4, 5, or 6 domains that they tap into. And so at the high school level, we don't know. We choose. It's a local decision. Let's say we choose traditional. And that could be for a variety of reasons, because that's what we're used to, because politically we need to make sure it says Algebra 1 on a course transcript. Whatever the reason is, it's okay. We pick traditional. We just need to know what we're picking. when we do that. So here's what we mean when we say traditional, and this is coming from the California draft math framework that's out there. Still in draft form, but we're getting a pretty good picture of what the state of California is thinking Common Core math will look like in our state. This is a little summary of 4 important classes at the high school, at the upper end of our K-12 math sequence if we went with the traditional pathway outlined in the California math framework. So first of all, Common Core grade 8, a new math course for all of us here in California, because in '97, we did not have any grade 8 specific standards. It was Algebra 1 in grade 8. In Common Core, grade 8 has its own set of standards. And this maps you back to the old map of the 97 standard. The 97 math standards. So pre-algebra, a little bit of 97 geometry, and the first half of Algebra 1 from 97 is in our new Common Core grade 8. But more interesting is what our new Common Core Algebra 1 course would look like if we followed the traditional pathway. 97 Algebra 1, the second half of the 97 standards. Look at this, the 97 Algebra 2 standards, the first half of Algebra 2 from 97, and a good amount of statistics topics. If we went with a traditional course called Common Core Geometry, it certainly will have essentially the 97 high school geometry standards in it, but it's also going to have new content called transformational geometry. And then interestingly enough, it's going to have standards that were addressed in 97 Algebra 2's probability set of standards. So Common Core Geometry is no longer your father's geometry course. Common Core Algebra 2, it has 97 Algebra 2, the second half of it, introductory trig with a strong focus on sine and cosine, and then, and this is real, pretty much the beginning of AP statistics. We just did a big statistics institute at UCSB, and I think we were all there, and the level of statistics that our high school students are going to be doing in that third year of Common Core math is entry-level AP statistics, what they would get at PSTAT 5e at UCSB, or at Math 117 at City College. So your traditional pathway is not the old tradition. So, and this analysis came from UCLA. In fact, I want to highlight who this came from Heather Dallas, UCLA's math department. She's the executive director of the Curtis Center for Teaching, Mathematics and Teaching. She's on the framework committee for CDE. She's on the standards committee. And this is her quote when she sent us that little summary table. Basically, in my mind, it shows that the new traditional courses are both poorly named and at least semi-integrated already. So the warning that I see in that is, if you call something Algebra 1 in Common Core version, we need to make sure everyone understands what that means, because it's really not your father's Algebra 1, which is fine. We can educate people, but we just can't say, oh, it's just the same as before because the course name is the same. This came to me in my email last month from the CDE. And I think you have a copy of this, the entire email. This is information that they put out on the higher mathematics information flyer to talk about the 2 pathways. And I want to highlight the one, a quote in there about integration. So integration allows students to build proficiency and see the connections and the interrelationships between each domain each year. Again, it's that coherence idea that the Common Core mathematics standards are written about. And then this is an important quote that I think I know our math teachers understand, but we need to make sure everyone understands. In higher level mathematics, in Common Core, it's the same set of standards whether you go traditional or integrated. It's just the different order that they come in, what comes first. It's the same set of standards that all 11th graders need to demonstrate proficiency in on Smarter Balance when they take that at the end of 11th grade. No one can leave anything out if you go traditional or if you go integrated. It's the exact same roadmap. So again, getting to the Smarter Balance, all 3rd through 8th graders, as you know, take Smarter Balance. It's integrated by its nature at that grade level. The 11th grade assessment will be integrated because it's not end of course, it's end of 3 years of the same set of standards no matter which pathway you go. Smarter Balance will assess at every grade level, 3rd through 8th and 11th, these 4 claims. Concepts and procedures, that's math standards, math topics, problem solving, communicating, reasoning, modeling, and data analysis. You can see that what Smarter Balance is going to be assessing of kids, in a sense, is extremely integrated compared to what CSTs were assessing grades 2 through 11. So the Smarter Balance assessments across the board, in my opinion, are integrated. And so when we're talking about kids and helping them build a coherent understanding of the structure of mathematics, I think it's really important, since they're going K-8 in an integrated fashion, that if we go traditional, we just have to make it very clear what they are actually doing. Not only to students, but to every teacher, to every principal who's going to be doing walkthroughs and evaluations, to every parent who shows up at back to school night, that when they show up to their kids' Algebra 1, Common Core Algebra 1, that when students say, well, we're doing statistics in my Algebra 1 class, parents know why they're doing statistics, even though the course is called Algebra 1 on the schedule. And so should we go traditional or integrated? We can go either way. If we go the old way, traditional, that's great, but realize we're probably only comfortable in terms of the name, not in terms of what is the new content.
Can I just interrupt really quickly to
Yes.
ask a question? So what is what I'm hearing you say, that the curriculum requires integration, period?
No.
No. Okay. So
The
because I'm listening to your presentation, I'm actually wondering if really this is a discussion about what traditional is as far as naming, or if it's traditional as we're really going to put the option of not integrating on the table and keeping it the old way.
With Common Core mathematics, there is no option.
There's no old way.
There is no old way.
So then this is more
There's a
about
new
what
way
we're
and a
calling.
new way.
So
they shouldn't call it traditional, they should call it new traditional or something, right?
Well, that's the thing. So I think this statement right below, so traditional or integrated, same set of standards, just a different order. And again, this is only high school. K-8, it's the set of standards. It's one structure of how those standards are going to play out because it's grade level. At high school, it turns away from grade level and course level and becomes the higher level mathematics standards that you can do in whatever order you want, call the courses whatever you want. Every 11th grader will be assessed on the exact same set of standards no matter which pathway you went. And so it is the same Common Core standards, but we don't have an option to choose something other than the Common Core math standards. And we also can't choose to leave out certain Common Core standards because, well, statistics doesn't fit in algebra, in our sense of what Algebra 1 is. No one can choose to leave that out, because if you do that, it's an inequitable situation to any kid trying to get college and career ready. And certainly they will not assess anywhere well on any assessment designed by Smarter Balance.
So essentially, I need to take those quotes, in quotes, very seriously.
You do have to, well, and I put those
traditional,
quotes in
which is
there.
not traditional.
I put the quotes in there because when you look at the standards, they really are not traditional. They're not your father's Algebra 1 class. That when you see Algebra 1 on your kid's schedule, and this is true, I'm not even speaking just about what parents see, our administrators, our math teachers need to see that when, oh, I'm teaching Algebra 1, but it's the Common Core version. And this is actually tying to my second bullet right there. We have a bunch of Algebra 1, for example, Algebra 1 textbooks in our classroom that you would consider traditional Algebra 1 books. That is not a textbook that will satisfy all of our Common Core requirements, even if we have a course called Algebra 1 in Common Core land. We will need to supplement because there is no statistics in our Holt Algebra 1, which were adopted specifically for our 97 math standards. They were written for California's 97 math standards. And that little box that described the new version of Algebra 1, the 97 math standards, compared to the Algebra 1 standards, Algebra 1 in Common Core world has the entire first half of our old Holt or our old 97 Algebra 2 course. So me as an Algebra 1 teacher with my Holt book that says Algebra 1 on it will not have enough materials for a Common Core Algebra 1 class. And so my warning about that is we have to be careful about calling something Algebra 1 when it's really not that same Algebra 1. It doesn't mean that we can't do it. We just need to educate every stakeholder that's involved in that math course.
All right.
And so that's this last little bullet there. And so ultimately, this is what, in terms of what kids are going to be doing day to day and year to year learning as they go from kindergarten through 12th grade to be college and career ready on this new map of mathematics that we are a part of. I want this to be one of our questions because kids struggle enough with mathematics and making sense of mathematics and not thinking that math is just a bunch of separate little tricks and rules that someone, their teacher, a math textbook writer has written up. We want kids to really see the sense of mathematics and the structure of mathematics and the coherence. So which pathway allows them to see that this is a connected discipline that is not a bunch of isolated topics to memorize, but items and knowledge to understand and build from to do whatever career that they're going to go to, coming off of John Becchio's green chemistry and green engineering. We want kids to be able to see that mathematics is going to support that science that they're doing when they get off to college. So that's the question I want to leave us with as we think about this pathway discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
Board.
problem.
Mr. Herron.
Is somebody somewhere going to have to make a decision which pathway or which way to go?
Yes.
You guys.
Us.
And who makes that decision and under what circumstances, when, how, and...
It's going to be the board, and we're going to be hopefully bringing it forward soon because we need to begin, regardless of which pathway, we need to begin informing parents, and it'll be very important strategically as far as planning for the staff needs to make during the next year because we are, as the whiteboard states in my office, 1 year away from full implementation of the Common Core.
Is there a debate within your community as to which way to go?
That's a great question. So when you say within our community, within my community, I will talk from the teachers that I've been working with, the secondary teachers in particular of this district from 7th grade to 12th grade. And we haven't had a formal vote, so to speak, but I think we all see the writing on the wall. And I have been doing lots of work with our secondary math teachers, and so I've gotten to know them quite well in the positions that I've been in the last 2 years here. And the consensus is that integration makes the most sense mathematically in terms of learning and in terms of instruction. We know that the logistics of going in an integrated fashion requires us to change how courses are named, and so that causes things in a computer system. It causes us to know that we have to teach our counselors what Math 1, for example, would look, that means and who's appropriate for that. But mathematically speaking, from an instruction and learning perspective, when we see the standards of Common Core and we see Smarter Balance, it makes the most sense to go in an integrated fashion. And when we talk to districts near us, more and more districts we're hearing are going with an integrated approach. Now, I think they're all in the decision-making mode, but that's what we're hearing when we have our larger than Santa Barbara Unified math meetings and discussions. So, thank you. Yep.
Ms. Idelson, then Ms. Parker.
With the two methods, would the content each year be different? Or, because I saw in charts a while back where an integrated plan would have, geometry, it would have all these things would be happening within that 1 year, and the traditional looked a little more weighted, say, if it were called algebra, it was more heavily weighted with algebra.
So there are no, I'm going to show you this description. There are no exact directives from Common Core writers or from the state of California as to what any course sequences would look like. They give what they would refer to as model courses, which then has standards that are put into what this particular group might call Algebra 1, or what this group might call Math 1. To directly answer your question, I think, yes, Algebra 1 would have, in terms of these 5 content domains or content categories for high school, Algebra 1 is going to focus mostly on, if you were to have a traditional Algebra 1 course, Algebra content and functions, and there will be statistics. Every course sequence model that I've seen has statistics and probability at every one of those 3 high school level or higher level mathematics courses. So geometry will have statistics, and typically they'll have probability in that geometry course. But algebra and functions tend to go together. Number and quantity will also be a foundation of both a traditional Algebra 1 and a traditional Algebra 2 course. Again, traditional in quotes, the new tradition.
So then, from a challenge I see with all this is you've got a teacher who's used to teaching Algebra 1 who's now going to be teaching algebra, geometry, stat, and all these things together in that one classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, how are you addressing that with an integrated model?
So in a pure integrated, that would be the case, that there would be a little bit, and the thing is, they would be purposeful in terms of how those courses, Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, are designed. Mm-hmm. Again, there's lots of groups, the CDE, the Common Core Framework writers, who have put out model courses to show how particular algebra standards and a particular set of geometry standards really tie together and build together. Because that is what mathematics is. It's not these separate courses called algebra or functions or geometry, but the content of geometry and the content of algebra really do go together.
Right.
We just don't typically teach it that way. Mm-hmm. And that's what is the power of Common Core mathematics, is the purpose of, regardless of which pathway you go, helping kids see how these topics are not separate, but they are, for not to weigh it to one side, but they're integrated. Mathematics is a structure that builds on itself. I mean, I often say to some of to teachers I work with, in this country, we call it math. In other countries, especially British colony types of oriented countries, they call it maths. And we call it math, but the word is mathematics with an S, plural. Mathematics is not meant to be separate individual topics of math. It is mathematics. It's a set together that's integrated, a structure, a coherence. So yes, teachers are going to have to learn, no matter which pathway we go, how mathematics builds together.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just to give an example of the work that the teachers have been doing, this discussion just didn't occur in isolation. We spent a whole year and countless hours with PLC leaders studying this and tracking the progression from first grade all the way up to senior year. So we feel confident the math teachers are making any opinion they have, formulating any opinion they have based on solid knowledge of what they experienced this year.
Ms. Parker?
Well, I feel like the board's been getting a lot of foreshadowing that the math crew has been thinking integrated. And I absolutely regard the math teachers as the experts in the field, and I'm sure that the board is going to be taking your opinions on that very, very seriously as they come forward. And thinking about it, I know, because I've seen some of the previous work done as you've been thinking about math pathways, that we've really been thinking as a district about flexibility, because the reality is you're going to have 7th grade students that still need to do 6th grade work in math, especially as we're making the transition to the Common Core. You're going to have 9th grade students that need to do 8th grade math. One of the things I don't like is actually seeing the grade level tied to 7 and 8 at the junior high level, because you're going to have 7th graders that are ready for 8th grade math, and you're going to have 7th graders that need to do 6th grade math. And so I hope that there's, I'll be curious to hear what the thinking is about what all these classes are going to be called at the junior high level in such ways that it doesn't end up being demeaning in any way. But the other things that I'm thinking about, I think it becomes easier at the high school level, at least in terms of the naming, if you go the integrated route. But in terms of the curriculum, K-8, allegedly, the state board is going to be adopting, according to their timeline, they're adopting in January. I don't know if you're hearing if that's still on track.
Yes, they have a supplemental set of materials that they are going to be offering districts to purchase as approved that are designed to supplement the materials you currently have.
But not for 9-12 at this point. Is it just K-8? Because all I see is K-8. I don't know when the idea is for 9-12 when I look at this.
They typically only adopt K-8, and then it's local.
So it's all going to be whenever the companies come forward. So I guess one of my questions is, are we going to be open-minded enough that if we head down this route and then it turns out that the curriculum that's being developed 2 years from now, 3 years from now is terrible for integrated, and you happen to see that there are some fantastic new traditional curricula out there, would we be flexible enough to, eventually say we made the wrong choice? And then another question I have is then, what about professional development? Because obviously, I think that especially at the high school level, a lot of our math teachers have experience teaching different topics, but it's all going to be different. And so this is presented differently. So this is going to require a lot of professional development. So what are you seeing in terms of professional development opportunities coming up?
2 TOSAs, Janet Hollister and Craig Snyder, are going to be extraordinarily important in helping with professional learning. And I think the PLC structure that Dr. Drotti and the teachers created is also going to be integral in the professional learning. But I think we've been very, very intentional in getting 2 of the best math teachers in the state of California to come forward and really begin teaching the adults. And I had the great experience, I'll just speak anecdotally, of being in the, it was either June 10th or 11th, it might have been both days, in the meeting in which the math teachers were having conversations about what's happening. And I left that room, I remember, very, very happy with the intellectual curiosity and the willingness to learn and change that those math teachers demonstrated. So there will be a lot of learning that will have to occur, but I'm really optimistic about and encouraged about the teachers' willingness to learn, so, which I think is at least 50%.
Well, there is no status quo this time. There's no status quo, because sometimes you'll see that teachers really find that hard to let go of, but it's all going to be out the window, and I guess by fall of 2014.
1 year from now.
Okay.
Full implementation of the Common Core. We'll have a monthly countdown on the whiteboard.
So does that mean a year from now we potentially change the names, or does that mean that this
No.
fall we change?
We're going to bring
the name?
forward we will bring
If
forward
that's-
for action courses, course titles, course descriptions, that will reflect the Common Core
When?
this year.
But they're not going to be implemented till.
No.
Okay. So
But we need to begin informing our community, and we need to begin, very importantly, informing our own staff in our K-6, well, it's really K-5, because the way it's grouped is in a traditional middle school, 6, 7, and 8. But our own schools, and very importantly, our feeder school districts on what we are going to be doing for our secondary students, so that we can begin some collaborative work with them. So, the reason this is before you now is not that you have to decide today, but you're going to have it back before you for a decision, so that we can know which road we're going to start walking down for a whole host of reasons, some of which have been discussed: professional learning aspect, instructional materials, and very importantly, communication with our stakeholders, both internally and externally in the district, about what's happening. I can't imagine a more important thing for us to do is to have a really good, solid communications plan on what it's going to be, because we are going to have concerns that will be expressed, and we need to be able to assuage those concerns, and we need to be able to communicate effectively to our component districts what we're doing and what our expectations are.
Ms. Parker said something that triggered a question for me. So if we do walk down this path and we somehow figure out that this isn't the whatever path, integrated or new traditional, whatever path it is, and if we find out that this isn't the path for us, how do we find out that this is not the right path for us? What measurements are we going to be using to know whether this is the right path for us or whether this is not the right path for us? And I don't want to say wrong, because I don't know that there is a wrong answer to this. And I think all the school districts are going to be trying this out. But is it going to be the Common Core 8 and 11 exam scores? Like, is that going to determine whether we're on the right or wrong path, or right or not right, or whatever?
Right, I understand the question. I'm not sure if a particular assessment, the 11th grade assessment, is going to tell us whether a particular path would be better or not. Because again, it's the same set of standards. And so, yes, we're going to need lots of professional development to help. If we go an integrated pathway, we're going to need professional development around what does integrated mathematics standard, what does a math course look like that's integrated? What does that mean for you as a teacher? But even if we go traditional, the exact same standards are going to be taught. And so that same teacher is going to, and they already, as Dr. Cash said, they have excitement for learning the set of standards called Common Core higher level mathematics. How we break up the standards, in a sense, we used to think that was the most important thing to figure out before we do anything, because we need to know which way. But we have come to the realization that we can actually do a tremendous amount of professional learning of what Common Core math is, what is the mathematics that I need to now learn because I haven't ever taken a stats class, let alone taught a stats class, which I'm not sure if you'd be surprised or not, but most of our high school level math teachers were like, I need to learn statistics because we are held responsible for teaching it. And they're no longer thinking because we're going integrated or because we're going traditional, because it doesn't matter. Every teacher at the high school level will be teaching statistics, no matter which pathway, which course they take or teach. And so I don't know if the assessments are going to tell us, oops, we made a mistake, we should have gone traditional. I think the best way to answer that is to look and have discussion about what are the challenges that we're facing now that we're integrated. Are they any different than if we would go traditional? I think it'd be more of a conversation, and maybe some of the data we could pull on might be some of those assessments, but I don't know if, I don't have a strong gut feeling that those assessments are going to tie directly to, oops, you should have gone the other pathway.
I think that the district liaison, PLC liaison position that we will have, and the site level PLC leaders will be great content. Like I've said this many, many times, this is the first real reform in education I've seen that demands teacher leadership. And it can't occur without teacher leaders. I mean, that's why we have TOSAs. That's why we really worked hard to get PLCs in place. That would be systemic. And I feel confident that those PLCs will be a strong conduit of information back through our system up to the board on, you know, we don't have the materials, this isn't the best way, it's working at this school, why not at this school? We'll have a way of gathering information and communicating with each other we currently don't have, that I think will be very informative. And the other thing that Craig didn't talk about that we will have to do is, because the Smarter Balance is only assessing at grades 8 and 11, we're going to have our own really important internal assessments on student outcomes and student achievement in those intermediate grades, so that we can assess our own performance. We can't just wait till grade 11 and go, whoops, we're sorry. We're going to need to know along the way, and we're going to need to know what kind of changes we're going to need to make in our instructional programs. So, you know, what we'll ask you to do is to point us in the direction, and then we'll go and we'll report back whether it's the best way for us to or not.
Ms. Parker.
Just following up on that, I mean, I think that we'll really, and this is a nice thing about it being national, we'll be able to look across the country because there will be districts that choose the traditional route, and we'll see how their struggling math students are doing compared to our struggling math students. And it may be that some end up doing both, because maybe it'll work for this student this way and another student another way. So it'll be interesting to find that out.
Any additional questions or comments, board? All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Schneider.
I really want to thank our math teacher, the three great teachers in the back of the room for taking time out in your summer, coming forward and being here tonight. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Our final conference agenda item is update on the Tatum property pathway. Dr. Cash?
Sure. I thought that it would be a good opportunity to bring this back since we have two new board members since this matter was before the board. Dave Young's going to make the presentation. Very briefly, we're in a position now where the Safe Routes to School pathway project has been approved, and we're potentially moving forward with that. Really want both Dr. Paz and Ms. Idelson to be able to ask questions and to understand fully what we're doing in our collaboration with the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. First, let me apologize. In my first line of background, I didn't tell you when the county first approached the board, and that was an agenda item for a discussion on October 23rd of 2012. It was the first time the board had seen this. Following that, the board approved Dr. Cash to sign an agreement saying that we were in support of the pathway so the county could go through the steps they needed to go through with different agencies to get approval to get the grants. As related, in the end here, the final paragraph, on June 24, we got word that the agreements should be signed by both boards during the last week of June. I've yet not seen or heard anything from the county on what has been happened so far, and I know they expected to start work on the design in July. I haven't had a chance to get copies of any agreements for you, but I assume that those things happened because I haven't been told otherwise. For background, you'll notice that there's some pictures in the attachments and the original proposal from the county. The Tatum property has long been used as a pathway to go between San Marcos High School and El Camino Elementary School, being basically the students going back and forth from one school to another. It's also used by a lot of parents who are going shopping at the shopping center. I know when I was out there, we've seen parents actually manhandling strollers with kids in them, trying to get through the maze of uneven walkways and things like that. And so it's traditionally been used. The district is currently not paying unused site fees on this property because it is open space during the day for the public to use. It's posted that it closes at dusk. We've worked with the county and the Sheriff's Department on putting up the proper signage to discourage people from camping and spending the night. We have evidence of camping out there, but when we go out during the day, we can't find anybody. And it used to be we found some people during the day, and the Sheriff's Department, along with the district representative, would go out and cite them, and they would 9 times out of 10 move on. We found everything from a one overnight campsite to a treehouse that was pretty sophisticated. Currently, no real potential problems. Facilities staff in maintenance department are out there 2 or 3 times a week checking to see the conditions of what's going on. I know the sheriff has been patrolling the area because Butch Arnaldi's been in contact with me when he sees something. Is that, did you know this was going on or this was happening out there at the site? Because we are, at one of our construction projects, taking a minor amount of fill dirt to the Tatum property. Of course, we're using our civil engineer, Steve Flowers, to give us a stormwater management plan to make sure that it's placed properly, that it doesn't run off the property in any streams or creeks or do anything like that. We did have a problem with some illegal dumping, so we've changed the locks. And one of the conditions of a contractor being able to go there and deposit clean soil is that they either lock the gate behind them or they have a guard at the gate. And so those are the things that the Sheriff's Department has seen during the day, during their routine patrols. They've responded to us, is this person, supposed to be here? Yes, they are. No, there aren't. So as far as an update on the pathway, I hope to find out very soon that we're in design. You'll notice there was 2 cost estimates. There was an original estimate that the county gave as far as the project. Found out they had not visited the site, so we encouraged them to visit the site because we thought their cost estimate was a little bit low based on existing conditions. They were looking at aerial photograph. They hadn't walked the pathway. Once they walked the pathway, they realized that there wasn't enough funds. And you'll notice the difference between those 2 cost estimates is the lights. It's posted closes at dusk. If we put lights on there, it's going to encourage nighttime use, and I'm not sure the district wants to encourage nighttime use of using that pathway. I know there's hopefully greater plans for that property in the future, and that'll be something that the board gets to decide on. But for now, that's the update on the pathway. It's gone through, like I say, all the approvals so far to gain the grant money, and we look forward to hearing from the county on the design.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Mr.
Dave.
Haggett. Board questions or comments? Mr. Herron?
Is there any update on the bigger picture of, or is it not the right time to talk about fencing? And at one point, we were talking about having the need to fence it totally, and
We have not. It's fascinating, as Mr. Young alluded to, is that that seems to, the issues related to the need to do that seem to have subsided. And I was on the property early June, and there was no one there. And Dave and I talk about it irregularly. And what he's been reporting is that there seems to be no one. They go and they might see evidence of one person, but they never find anybody. That's very different than what it was just about 8 or 9 months ago, when we could have gone almost any day of the week and found 1 or 2 people living there.
And we've had no recent complaints from the management of the shopping center nearby.
Right.
Fencing the property would be an option, but I don't believe in the long run it would be that effective, because you have virtually some creeks, gullies, everything along the railroad tracks. Very easy to just cut a fence and come on in, and nobody would know you're there, and you can see evidence of that having happened on the other side of the freeway all the way along. And there's a culvert that goes under there, and it's kind of hard to fence a culvert or put up some sort of barrier that would trap debris and cause flooding upstream, then we'd be responsible for that. So, fencing may be not along the property line, maybe along the property line. Those are all things that would be considered if the board decided to fence that. You also have the railroad. The easiest way to fence that is to be on railroad property. And if we're going to be on railroad property, that's not only getting those permits, but the railroad then has to make sure they give adequate training to the fence company and be on site while all work's being done. They're very particular about who's in an area when a train may be moving through for their safety purposes and liability.
Ms. Idelson?
The proposed pathway, is it pretty much along the area closest to the shopping center, from what I see?
It pretty much follows the southern boundary of the existing pathway that has been established just by people constantly walking in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the El Camino side of the school, there was a thought of bringing that closer to the south property line. But then that area is also a low spot of drainage where we have rainwater from streets that meet there coming down and keeping that corner of the property pretty moist.
And it looks like it would be asphalt? Is that the
An asphalt pathway, yes. The property owner on the south side, San Marcos Growers, has been a good neighbor as far as informing us of when things happen, when they don't. One of their buildings does encroach on our property. We're aware of that, and they're aware of that, and that's
where it stands.
it's not, at some point in time in the future, if the property is developed, it would become an issue. I'm sure that will be addressed at that time.
Mr. Herron?
I just suggest Mr. Hayek was nice enough to take Susan Deacon and myself on a tour of the Grand property. And just from a background of information as to what, when it comes back to us at some time in the future as to the whole property, what to do with it, might be a good idea. I'm sure he'd give you a tour, too.
I'd
more
like
than
that.
happy to.
Okay.
And I would actually suggest that. I think that was really helpful just to walk even the path. It's interesting that it's coming back without lighting, because my recollection is that when this got voted on in October, the lighting was such a big pitch as part of the safety. So it's interesting that it's coming back to us without lighting, and I understand budget constraints.
Our goal was not to put any of our money into the project.
Right, no, and I remember that conversation, but I also remember that safety was being pitched as a reason to move forward for it right away. And safety still continues to be an issue, but it sounds like some things are more under control than they were at that particular moment.
Well, I have to compliment Mr. Hetyoung's staff, because we have been very vigilant, along with staff from San Marcos High School, in going to the property on a regular basis. And I think that really sent a pretty clear message to casual or frequent users of the property that they were trespassing.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Thank you, I appreciate the update, and we look forward to the next update someday.
Which could be at the next board meeting.
Maybe, yeah, if the contracts are signed, there you go.
A whole month away.
All right, and this concludes our conference agenda items. Board, are there any future agenda items you'd like to see? I gave you a long list today. All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Thank you.